Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring in the bottom left-hand corner switch. I'm going to go pink Zerg. You can call it periwinkle. It depends on how refined you are in your color palette. In our top right, we have our orange MueX. He is our Terran. Both players, I know switches in Masters. I believe MueX is in High Diamond or Masters. I'm not 100% sure. I do know that MueX is proud of this game, and that's basically it. It looks like they're friends. I do know that they are in the same clan, so probably practice partners. I mean, you can check out the colors, and you expect it's not going to be on the ladder, even though we're on a ladder match, or a ladder map, rather. But you know, it's nice to practice against people who actually know your build, because that's what you're trying to build for, is people who actually know you to directly counter your build. And it looks like MueX is going to be going for a bit more of a traditional build. He's not grabbing his refinery just yet, hasn't even thrown down anything more than a supply depot on the top ground, but it looks like he's making motions like he wants to throw down that barracks too, to guard against any early aggression that could be coming out of switch. We can see that we're approaching the 15 supply mark, which is when we'd expect to see that first pool being thrown down, but only time will tell if that is what Twitch is intending to do. Sometimes you'll see on a map such as this, which has that really long rush distance, sometimes Zerg will be feeling ballsy and go for that hatch first, and that can pay big dividends later on. And in fact, that is what Switch is going for. He's got the minerals, he's got the drone in position. There goes the hatchery on the low ground, but that's pretty ballsy, because if that's scouted by MueX early enough, he can really capitalize on that early weakness. But with the timing that MueX actually has, it doesn't look very likely that he is going to be able to punish the hubris of Switch, who's actually being pretty ballsy with that drone, doing a little bit of damage to the SCV working on the barracks. I don't think he's going to succeed in actually taking it down, but he has succeeded in doing quite a lot of damage. Finally, the barracks finishing, and that one SCV is going to be limping home. I wonder which one was it. No, I don't know where he went. Anywho, no gas being grabbed for MueX just yet. No gas being grabbed for Switch, who's actually thrown down the spawning pool while we were talking earlier. Spawning pool and hatchery are going to be finishing at approximately the same time. Hatchery is going to be finishing just a little bit before the spawning pool. And if Switch is clever, he's going to save up enough money and supply to produce 2 queens at one time, even up the larva injects, to make it so that there goes the weakened one. He made it all the way over to the mineral line of Switch and died with a single shot from that drone. That's awesome. That's pretty, that SCV's got to be feeling great about himself. He's like, no, you can't scratch my suit and then get away with it. I'm going to go back and mess up every one of your friend's house. And then he dies with 1 shot. That's great. 2 extractor trick being built, which is a really good play by Switch. He did 2 extractor tricks so that he'd have the 2 extra supplies, so that he could produce 2 queens at one time to do that whole syncing up of the larva injects, which is a great play. He did lose a little bit of resources for the double extractor trick, but more than paid enough dividends out of that. His economy is going to be in fantastic shape once those queens pop out and we get those extra larva injects. Speaking of economy, MueX is building his own command center on the low ground. He's going for a bit more of a economy build. He does have the single barracks still up on the high ground, with the factory being produced right behind it. Depending on what add-on we can see out of the barracks, we can see if it's going to be a mech build or a Stargate play later on. The barracks does reposition for that add-on a reactor, so we're going to be seeing some factory Hellions coming out of that factory in short order. And that's another key in for that, is the fact that we only have 2 gas being grabbed at the main, no gas being grabbed down at the natural just yet. Still, the saturation on that natural is a little bit behind what we'd expect, but that's because so much money has been spent on this infrastructure. Even with another factory going on top of the first factory, that's just going to be a lot of minerals lost that you could spend on SCVs to get up a hardier economy. And MueX is going to be relying on those Hellions to stay in this game because of that. Those Hellions are going to be hitting the unprepared Zerg like a ton of bricks. Otherwise, MueX is going to be in a lot of trouble. So he's gambling on the effectiveness of those Hellions, but with a map that's so open, those Hellions are going to be able to kite around Zerglings even if they do get caught unprepared. He shouldn't have too much of a problem with keeping them alive and keeping some form of map control. Tech Lab going down on that other the barracks, producing a Tech Lab for the factory. Tech Lab for the factory. Factory is going to take control of the Tech Lab, and is probably going to be either beginning to produce siege tanks or blue flame for the Hellion. Only time will tell. Natural saturation is fantastic for Switch. His 36 Harvester is going to be mass producing drones for the 3rd, but that's going to leave him very exposed to the Hellions, which are going to be pushing out in short order, producing 2 Hellions at a time for MueX. And those Hellions are going to have the upgrade of the Infernal Preigniter, that blue flame. So they're going to be doing quite a lot of damage. And also you can see that the gas timing is very, very well thought out for MueX. He doesn't have that second gas because he doesn't need it. The Hellions produce they only require minerals, and the only gas he's used so far is to buy infrastructure, such as the Blue Flame Hellion or the add-ons. So these Hellions have taken a very aggressive stance right now. That usually you expect to see 2 or 3 more being added into the mix before they try to push in, but these 2 Hellions make themselves known, make it so that Switch is aware that this push could be forthcoming, gives him a little bit of extra time to get his units in a row. Unfortunately, he's just now producing those Zerglings. He's got 2 spines on the way, 1 spine over at the 3rd, which is really where you'd expect the heavy hit to take place. But there's 0 saturation here, and all 5 of these guys are going to be arriving just seconds before the blue flame is done, trying to focus down anything coming out of these cocoons, but unfortunately, those cocoons are so very resilient. I think they might be able to kill this spine crawler before it actually pops out. They do indeed. Good play there by Switch, trying to make it so that the drone could morph into an extractor and survive for a little bit longer, but even though blue flame is done, this hatchery is going to be alive for a very long time if it's just Hellions trying to take them down. Zerglings and Queens making a very tight wall off in this location. I think all the Zerglings are going to go down as long as the engagement takes place away from the Queens. Not enough Hellions to take out those Queens. They're going to shy away, especially with the spine crawler in the background providing artillery, but again, that's just free range to the Hellions to take out this hatchery. And at the same time, MueX is, continually producing on his economies. Evened up that harvester count. He's producing another CC back at home, and his infrastructure is beginning to show its effect. Look at that, 5 factories. 5 factories total. Probably going to see a switch up to siege tanks, maybe even just Thors. Something on the back of this Hellion harass. Sometimes you'll see a starport on top of this so that the Hellions can be dropped in the main base, but that's really over-committing to this harassment. MueX didn't kill off a lot on the economy. As far as the economy is concerned, all he did was delay that 3rd. He didn't really get the hammer blow, the one-hit kill that you'd expect to see with somebody who's putting in a bunch into the harassment, but he's still got a lot of these Hellions alive. He's proving to be very cost-effective against them. In fact, I don't think he's lost any of them. Look at that. 1 unit lost, and that was that single SCV, that 50 resources, but 480 for Switch, and Switch is finally starting on that saturation up at the 3rd. He's still got a small contingent of roaches positioned at both of the entrances, and these roaches can pretty much push forward with no fear from those Hellions because they really don't do a lot of damage. But at this point, MueX is just buying time. He really wants to get up another set of infrastructure. He needs to get up a lot of tech labs on his factories. He needs to get a bunch of siege tanks out, a bunch of Thors out, a lot of upgrades for that. His armory is underway. We can see that first Thor is coming out shortly. Surprised not to see a starport just yet because of the, you do want to have the possibility of drops in the back of your mind because you can see this. You see those roaches positioned. It's 2 different places. That's a large force split up, and that allows MueX to engage smaller chunks of units rather than that death ball that can prove to be pretty cost effective against Terran mech. MueX really wants to make something happen with all these Thors, or these Hellions, and unfortunately that makes him be a little bit ballsy against all these roaches, but those roaches just prove to be a brick wall. Might as well be throwing an egg against a wall as far as I'm concerned, because those Hellions will not be able to engage those roaches. At the same time, Switch is banking a lot of minerals, not a lot of gas. He needs to start mining more off of his extractors back at home. 2 of them aren't saturated. One of them is saturated. I'm missing some sort of conversation here because I'm trying to find what Switch's next move is. He only has that Roach Warren. He's got that spawning pool. He needs a Spire up. He needs a Nidus Worm. He needs some Hydralisks. He needs to be teching towards a Hive. Something. And he does have a lot of upgrades. It looks like he's going for some sort of drop, Ventral Stacks, Pneumatized Carapace, as well as the range, so maybe he'll be throwing in Infestor. So Roach Infestor army is definitely going to be very effective against this many Hellions. Some fungal growths to hold the Hellions in place, and then the Roaches just to kick them while they're down. But Overlord's speed is done, and the Ventral Sacks will be done shortly, so these Roaches will be able to push out, hopefully drive back MueX all the way to his home base from those Hellions, and all of a sudden we can just see how many Roaches that Switch really does have. 41 of them. That's a lot of supply. 155 over 151. So MueX definitely has a standing army of his own. A lot of Thors back at home, a lot of Hellions, but we don't see any siege tanks, which is typically what you'd expect to see. And here comes the Doom Drop. A lot of roaches in these Overlords. Unfortunately, not enough Overlords to pick up all of the roaches, so those roaches do continue to push down, driving the Hellions back into the main base, but this is where the most of the damage is going to be done. Switch dropping all of his Hellions, or all of his roaches in the main base of MueX. The Thors definitely having the upper hand in this engagement, but all that does is give the roaches free range to the main base of MueX, and they're going to be targeting down the unit producing structures first, and then engaging the very weak Hellions. Those Hellions are kind of getting clogged up on the ramp. Fortunately for them, 2 Thors have arrived a little bit late to the party with their +1 weapons against all of these roaches. They quickly do get melted away. Fortunately for MueX, those roaches never swing north, and could have done a significant blow to the economy that MueX actually has. As things are now, those 2 Thors are definitely going to be raking in the kills, and yes, one of them might go down. No, not even that. Quick pull from the SCVs will be repairing those Thors, and all of a sudden MueX has stabilized. Switch has been pushed back. None of the bases have gone down. It looks like the Thors had to reposition down in the bottom right corner to deal with another bit of aggression. But 78 over 61, so Terran is definitely in the lead. I mean, he's got to be feeling very comfortable, but how comfortable can he feel in order to push out? He lost a lot of his Hellions, a lot of his harassment potential, and it looks like this is going to be a bit of a doomed push from MueX. He's got a lot of Thors, and that's a lot of potential damage, but he's got to worry about this right here, which is the possibility of a counter drop. Those Overlords could pick up the remaining roaches, swing around, drop in, and deal some significant damage to the infrastructures, and these Thors are not fast enough to reinforce quickly. And to save that infrastructure, the only thing you'd be able to reinforce are these Hellions, and they'd be useless against that. Fortunately for him, Switch has decided to take a bit more of a passive stance, and will attempt to engage these Hellions straight up and down in a slugging match. It looks like he came out in the lead. Those roaches definitely did a number on those Hellions. There's not a lot of Hellions left alive at all. Only 10 of them left, but 9 Thors are behind them, so all of those Hellions can go down for as far as I'm concerned, and those roaches are going to be in a world of hurt if they expect to go toe-to-toe with these Thors. Those Thors will push up, definitely take out this base, but what direction will they follow after that? Will they push north to take out the 3rd? Or will they push south to take out the infrastructure? Look like he's actually going to be ignoring that base, which isn't mining yet, in favor of dealing a death blow to the standing force of Switch. 140 over 172. MueX pushing with a numerically superior force of the Thors. Absolutely just reaping those roaches. They go down so very quickly. You can see some massive fungal growths on all the Thors, doing a lot of damage. Those Thors were very weak, but they were supported by a lot of SCVs, and those SCVs could have repaired them up in relatively short order. We don't see anything on the production tab in the favor of Switch. Switch needed to produce a lot more roaches to deal with this sort of engagement early on. These infestors were a fantastic idea and could have proved to be more effective if he had used those infested Terrans to buy a little bit of a meat shield, to buy a little bit of time for those roaches to do a little bit more damage. I'm not 100% sure. I think if the counter drop had happened, MueX would have been in a lot more trouble, because it would have been a base race and he would have had to have done a lot more damage in order for Switch to feel hopeless, because, you know, Switch wasn't in the worst of cases. He had a lot of money saved up. He could have just continually produced Zerglings and dealt with this force, and MueX would have been in a lot of trouble. But a fantastic play by MueX to push out with what he had when he had it, and a very good job by MueX to keep these Hellions alive. Very good job by you for watching this replay. If you guys have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Ibigandscary. Bye.